Welcome back to the Top 10 Pauper Cube series, Red Edition. Now, any of you who have been playing Pauper or Pauper Cube know that there's no shortage of very powerful burn spells. There are so many good burn spells that I can't even fit them all on a top 10 list, and I think a top 10 list of burn and removal will be kind of boring. So I have put what I think are very good and efficient creatures on the list. My honorable mention is Impact Tremors from Dragons of Tarkir, 1 in red enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. I do think this is a very respectable pick if you're doing token and aggressive strategies. It's not like some of my other honorable mentions with fun in mind. This is a build around, but it's also just a respectable card in an aggressive deck that's just trying to kill your opponent. There's a lot of cards like Hordling Outburst, Beetleback Chief, just even Dragon Fodder. There's so many token generators in Pauper Cube that this can, if you get it out early enough, can do a staggering amount of damage just for the 2 mana it costs. Starting the list off at number 10 is maybe an odd selection at first glance. Gorehorn Minotaur is 2 red, 3/3, Bloodthirst 2. If an opponent was dealt damage this turn, this creature enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it. Now, a 4 mana 5/5, that's not going to raise eyebrows in a lot of formats, but in Pauper Cube, 5/5s are kind of hard to deal with. Burn spells don't reach that high, most creature stats don't reach that high, and a 4 mana 5/5 in red of all colors it's kind of impressive. If you've not played the format a lot, you may think I'm crazy, but having somebody that's already behind and you're playing a 4-drop 5/5, they're going to be behind dealing with it. If they don't deal with it right then, they're going to start losing creatures or chunks of their life every turn. And the Bloodthirst isn't a restriction, but you're playing red. You're probably attacking in and getting damage that way, and if you're not, there are several pingers available in the format. I do think this is a powerful curve topping option for aggressive red decks in the format. My pick for number 9 may also strike a lot of people as an odd inclusion. Hissing Iguana from Shards of Alara, 2 in red, 3/1. Whenever another creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may have Hissing Iguana deal 1 damage to target player. In the right kind of deck, this can deal a staggering amount of damage. Similar to Impact Tremors, but even on its own, it's a 3-drop 3/1. That's not impressive, but it's also going to trade with something probably, whereas Impact Tremors won't. If you already have a board, this can kind of simulate a really bad Hell Rider, and a really bad Hell Rider is still a Hell Rider. Your opponent will have to deal with this very quickly, or they're going to start taking huge chunks of damage from this every turn. My number 8 pick, another token enabler, Hordling Outburst from Khans of Tarkir, 1 red sorcery, put 3/1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield. This synergizes very well with all of the earlier mentioned cards, Gorehorn Minotaurs. It enables Bloodthirst. Hissing Iguana and Impact Tremors, it's just free damage. There's a lot of cards that care about extra bodies in red. Having so many extra bodies on one card at a decent rate for red is very impressive. If your deck happens to have a Bone Splitter or a Volshock Morningstar, all of these creatures can potentially trade with every one of your opponent's creatures. And if not, there are other uses for the tokens. Even just on its own, this card is very much at rate for red commons. This card will not pull me into aggressive red, but it's a card that I'm very happy to have once I'm in there because it synergizes with so many cards in the color. My number 7, originally from Plane Chase 2012, Beetleback Chief, 2 red, 2/2. When Beetleback Chief enters the battlefield, put 2/1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield. Pretty similar to Hordling Outburst, but it also functions with flickers and raise dead effects. It's just very good at rate for red creatures, and all the synergies that I spoke about with Hordling Outburst also apply to this. Bone Splitters, Impact Tremors, just generically having a lot of bodies in a format with few sweepers This is powerful enough to make me first pick it and go into red aggro. Even if you're not red aggro, this actually can be a decent card for control decks. Having 3 bodies on one card can put you back into the game pretty quickly. Starting at number 6 is where we get to the real power of red, the burn spells. Now this one's a bit unique in that it only targets creatures. Flame Slash from Rise of Eldrazi, single red mana, sorcery speed, deal 4 damage to target creature. Now the restriction to sorcery speed and to creatures is a huge deal, I'm not saying that it's not. But 4 damage kills almost every creature in Pauper Cube. Outside of a few green creatures, Gurmag Angler, and a few other choices, this card will remove almost every creature you want it to remove. Now I do value reach in red very, very highly, and that's why I have this at number 6. I could definitely understand putting this several spots higher just because it's so efficient at what it does. But a lot of times you need your red removal to actually function as opponent removal, and this does not do that. At number 5 I have Arc Lightning, originally from Urza's Saga, 2 in a red, sorcery. Arc Lightning deals 3 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures or players. Pauper Cube, a lot of its aggressive decks do rely on multiple bodies and multiple tokens, so this can easily be a 3-for-1. And if you get a 3-for-1 with Arc Lightning early in the game, it's devastating. In a 2-for-1, it happens a lot, and it's very, very easy to set up a 2-for-1 for this. The 3-for-1s, they do happen a little bit less, but they do happen enough to give Arc Lightning the spot it is on this list, or even higher. The sorcery speed does slow it down a lot, and this is not necessarily the best, most efficient burn spell, but when it works extraordinarily well. I could see this being higher on the list, but 3 mana for 3 damage and sorcery speed, it isn't always going to get the 2-for-1 or 3-for-1. Sometimes it's just the 1-for-1, and it kind of feels bad doing 3 damage for 3 mana. There are other cards similar to this, like Pyrotechnics, which is 5 mana for 4 damage at sorcery speed, and the newly common Fiery Cannonade, which is an instant Pyroclasm for 3 mana. Now, the Fiery Cannonade does not hit players, and Pyrotechnics only does 1 more damage for 2 more mana. So of these 3 cards that could vie for a spot, I think Arc Lightning is the definite choice. Speaking of 3 damage for 3 mana, in number 4 I've got Brimstone Volley from Innistrad, instant, 2 red. Brimstone Volley deals 3 damage to target creature or player. Morbid. Brimstone Volley deals 5 damage to target creature or player instead if a creature died this turn. So as I said with Arc Lightning, 3 damage for 3 mana, even if it is instant speed, that's mediocre. Nobody wants to be doing that. But the fact that this is a 3 mana Lava Axe at instant speed is super powerful. It's very impressive. Morbid is super easy to trigger, even with just attacking with your tokens. Carrion Feeder, Scorched Rusalka, there are several sacrifice outlets that are respectable enough to play in Pauper Cube, and a lot of times you're not even going to have to enable it yourself, your opponent will just by blocking. The thing that does drag this card down is it's not very great for control decks. They're not interested in chunking somebody for 5 damage, and they have better options to deal with creatures. I could see it going several spots up or down on the list depending on how you value flexibility, but this pick is raw power for me. 5 mana for 3 damage is crazy stats. At number 3 I have Magma Jet, originally from 5th Dawn. 1 in red, instant, Magma Jet deals 2 damage to target creature or player, scry 2. Now this is somewhat the opposite of Brimstone Volley. It's not raw power, but 2 damage plus a scry is essentially a cantrip, and this can be played in control or aggro. Any deck that I play that can summon red mana, I want a Magma Jet in it. My number 2 pick for overall best red card in the Pauper Cube, Lightning Bolt. You've seen it, you've been killed by it, you've killed people with it. The game doesn't typically print such raw power and clean cards as Lightning Bolt. It's probably a good thing because this is this card is busted. In any format that Lightning Bolt's ever been legal in, it's been arguably one of the best cards in that format, and that reigns true for Pauper Cube as well. Now, in interest of not having so many similar cards on the cube, I would have Chain Lightning at this spot as well. So you got the Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning combo here as well. The only difference with Chain Lightning is it's a sorcery, which is a huge difference, but it would still be a number 2 spot. 1 mana, 3 damage. It doesn't get better than that. My number 1 pick for best red card in the Pauper Cube format, Rolling Thunder. Originally from Tempest, sorcery, X, red. Rolling Thunder deals X damage divided any way you choose among any number of target creatures or players. So this is very similar to Fireball. And in interest to have a more diversified top 10, I'm going to have this spot shared with Fireball, similar to the Chain Lightning Lightning Bolt spot. However, Rolling Thunder is magnitudes more powerful than Fireball. Fireball, every time you choose a new target, you have to pay 1 more mana. So it's weird math. It's not really, grokkable is a term that people use, I guess. It's hard to really understand what Fireball does. But it costs a lot of mana every time you want to hit several targets. Rolling Thunder, on the other hand, is just raw power. You get what you see here, no math to it. You spend 10 mana on X, you're dealing 10 damage. You spend 4 mana on X, you're dealing 4 damage. This card in ramp and control decks can single-handedly, one-sided Plague Wind the entire board. Burn your opponent out from 10, 20, whatever. This is, if you can cast it in a comfortable state, arguably the most one-sided game-winning card in the format. This is probably my number 1 first pickable card in the Pauper Cube format. Now, you are pretty much restricted to mid-range and control decks. Now, you want to pair this with blue, pair it with green ramp. But once you've decided that you're playing a Rolling Thunder deck, you're playing a Rolling Thunder deck, because why would you want anything else? As long as you can cast this card for a reasonable number, you're almost certainly winning that game. You will wipe out almost every creature your opponent controls, and if you got enough time, you'll just wipe out your opponent. Arguably the best card in the format. My number 1 pick, more often than not, above almost everything else. So that does it for my top 10 red cards in Pauper Cube. A lot of similar cards on the list, but that's kind of unavoidable if you're looking at red in Pauper Cube. It mostly does 1 or 2 things very well, and that's about it. You can make tokens and attack, and you can burn people to death. Now, it's very good at those 2 things, but it's got like the 2-track mind, right? Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you for the next one.